Sorry about that. Gary Cleveland here with helicopterground.com. Kenny on the console with the sound and the cameras. And I think we have our sound taken care of now. Sorry about the technical difficulty.
Oh, let me go over here and turn this down.
I want to remind you that if you have check ride success, send us a picture of yourself and your helicopter, and we'll give you the I'm Safe checklist that you can slap on the fridge or the locker at the hangar to remind you of your checklist to go down through. Make sure you have your medical certificate, your pilot's license, your driver's license. Make sure you're fit to fly, proper pre-flight. We like to give these away just as a reminder that you used hogs to get your rating, and you always have to use this checklist throughout your career, throughout your flying time. And if you send us a short video of you and your helicopter talking about how hogs helped you to get your rating, we will send you a t-shirt for free that says I did it with hogs. I know a lot of people attribute hogs or helicopter online ground school to getting their ratings, and they tell us all the time in emails, and we're just we'd like to juice it up a little bit with a nice little video or a photograph to put on our site so other members can see it. Kenny's ready to roll here with his camera now.
All right, here we go. All right, so that's what happens sometimes. Courtney's not here today, so I'm trying to run everything here at our main console. Normally Courtney's over there taking comments and talking to everybody. So that's why I started up, and last minute I screwed up the audio. So I want to go back to where I started. Everybody that's here, I don't mention everybody that's here. Juanita Falk. Juanita bought, I believe, March 1st, 2012, one of my very first members of all time. Met her at HAI last year. That was awesome meeting her firsthand. That is awesome. She's here. Xavier Gomez, hello everyone, Pensacola, Florida, at the ready. Jessica Maris, greetings from Colorado. Max Flight Helicopter, Max Flight Helicopters. Kissimmee here, Florida. Taz checking in. Taz you see in our new instrument course. So if you don't realize we have a new instrument course, we have an instrument course along with our private membership, commercial, CFI, and now we have instrument course. And Taz gets credit for a large majority of those videos in there, and Taz does an incredible job. T. Gregory Berry, Todd here. Greetings from Washington, D.C. Fred Beddard, hello from Boston. James, morning, James here from Washington. That's awesome. Rick say no audio. That's where we realized, whoops, we didn't have any audio. So again, I screwed up. So no audio, no sound, can't hear you. And then Mark Daniels, it is Mind Training Tuesday. Yeah. That's pretty funny. Radio check. That's funny. I can't hear you. 7,600. That's awesome. Somebody was squawking 7,600. That is funny. I like that. Very funny.
Mime training.
That's good. All good now. Paul from KRFD. Man, we got a great crowd today. Ron from Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. Joe watching from Belgium, Mad Mike from Charlottesville, Virginia, Paul G, Rockford, Illinois, Steve, Grand Forks, North Dakota. Awesome. Will we be doing Q&As? Yes, we will. We want to keep today about, let me get back to the main camera here. We'll come back and check. Again, let me put in the disclaimer. Normally, Courtney's over there taking care of comments for us and saying hi to everybody, and then she puts the questions onto a screen so Gary and I can be presenting, and Taz or Tannen or Chris, whoever else is here. So I'm trying to monitor comments and present today. So bear with us. We'll do the best we can with just two of us. You know, it's a long way from where I started back 3, 4, 5 years ago trying to do this stuff by myself. Come a long way. So today is about auto rotations. We'll get to it. I want to roll the first video is a video I made a couple years ago on my top 10 tips. I reviewed the video again last night before deciding what videos we wanted to roll today. And we're going to roll the top 10 tips first, just because I reviewed them and thought, you know what, I feel strongly about them today as what I did 2 years ago when I made this video. A lot of basics of the auto rotation. If you do a lot of the simple stuff and remember the basics, you can make auto rotations not quite as intimidating as what they are. They are, you know, intimidating in the beginning, but the more you get comfortable with them, and when you learn the good techniques, they get a little bit easier. So we're going to run my top 10 tips first. We'll run that. We'll be checking videos, or comments and questions. We'll get those ready to answer after the first video. And then we're going to show a couple others. We're going to talk about 90-degree autos leading into 180 autos. We're going to roll a video with me and Holly from our CFI where we're doing, went out and did a bunch of full downs. I'm going to show you a straight in full down and a 180 full down video, and talk about those too, because a lot of people are intimidated by the full down auto rotations, and once you learn them, you realize that sometimes for a lot of people that's actually a full down is easier than a straight in, or a full down is actually easier for some people than a power recovery, and we'll talk about that. So we're going to roll the first 10 tips. We'll start taking your questions, communicate with you in chat, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes. So here's the video on the top 10 tips. Hello, I'm Kenny Keller, the creator of Helicopter Online Ground School, and I want to give you my top 10 best auto rotation practice tips. Number 1, you need to have a nice entry. If you enter it nice, it's going to be nice. If you enter it sloppy, it's going to be sloppy. So in this case, we'll use the R44 example. These tips are pretty common no matter what aircraft I'm flying. It doesn't really matter. R44, Enstrom, Jet Ranger, it doesn't matter. The elements of a good auto, the majority of them are the same. In this example, we use 70 for our airspeed, 500 AGL when we enter, and I want to be at 0 rate of descent when I enter. So we want to give ourselves enough time that when we get to our entry point, we can have a nice entry. Again, 0 vertical speed, the airspeed entry that we need, the altitude we want, and the trim that we want. I've heard my examiner say many times during the check ride, private, commercial, CFI, if it takes you 10 minutes to get set up for the straight-in auto, take 10 minutes to get set up for the straight-in auto. You want to have everything ready to go. You want to feel good about it so you have a nice entry. If you enter it nice, it'll be nice. You enter it sloppy, it's going to be sloppy. Number 2, you need a small aft cyclic pull at entry. So we talked about having everything set up. I like to use 70 for the Glide in the R44, 60 in the Enstrom. Doesn't matter, whatever aircraft you're flying, you're going to have your glide speed. I enter about 75 in the R44 so that when I enter and I give that small aft cyclic pull, the nose does not dive. So you're setting your speed when you enter the auto rotation with a small aft cyclic pull. And if you do that and you set your speed correctly at the beginning, chances are you'll have a nice glide going down. If you screw up the speed at the beginning, then you'll start going forward, backward, airspeed up and down, RPM, trim, everything kind of goes wacky. So getting that speed set at the beginning is very, very important. Number 3, you need 3 things simultaneously at that entry. We just mentioned the aft cyclic, so you need a little bit of aft cyclic, a little bit of right pedal, whatever it takes to put yourself in trim, and also lower the collective. All 3 of these things should be done together. If you do one, then the other, then you're kind of just monkeying the thing around, and it's not going to be that nice. You need to do all 3 of these entry points, aft cyclic, right pedal, down collective, all simultaneously. Number 4, roll off on a throttle to split your needles. No throttle chops. Back in the old days, they taught chop that throttle all the way off. Well, when you do a throttle chop, you have a chance of the engine actually stopping, and then you're going for a real engine failure when you're trying to do a practice engine failure. So you want to roll off enough throttle to split the needles, do it smoothly, gently, and split the needles to the point that's appropriate for the aircraft that you're flying. Number 5, control your airspeed during the glide. So in this example, we're using 70. If you set it right and you get it at 70 and you don't start moving that cyclic around, keep that airspeed nice, then it makes everything nice. Again, you start messing with airspeed, then things change with RPM, so on and so forth. So really work on focusing inside, outside. You have a cross check. Inside your airspeed, outside your spot. Inside at RPM, outside look at your spot. Inside trim, outside to your spot. You want to really focus on keeping that airspeed steady. Number 6, raise enough collective smoothly to control RPM. On most aircraft, depending on the day, after you enter, the RPM is going to start to rise and you're probably going to have to pull up collective a little bit. Now this could be different on varying aircraft. I'm not saying in every single instance, but most generally, after you enter it, the RPM is going to start to rise. So be prepared and know that it's going to rise on you, and just start raising a little bit of collective ahead of time to keep it from getting too high. If you catch it early, it just makes the auto nice. If you wait till the RPM's too high, then you're making more of an abrupt up movement with the collective, and it just makes things messy. So not only you're focusing on your airspeed, your trim, you're really focusing on keeping that RPM under control. Number 7, maintain trim during the glide. I can tell you it's amazing. If you get that trim in there and you have the aircraft trimmed into the wind, it actually seems like it comes down a little bit slower. It's more controlled, and a lot of people will enter it, they'll put in the pedal but not enough or too much, and they come down out of trim. If you fly the thing in trim, no matter what aircraft it is, it will come down what seems like slower by being in trim. Number 8, set RPM close to range where the needles will join when the throttle is added. So again, this could vary a little bit depending on the aircraft or maybe an instructor, the way a certain instructor wants you to do it. But in general, about halfway through the green range is pretty usually close to the actual operating range for the engine. So that could vary on instructor and technique. I'm just saying in general, you know, high isn't necessarily the best and low isn't necessarily the best, usually about halfway through the green range. And again, depending on the aircraft and depending on circumstances. If you're trying to stretch a glide, you might go to the lower side of the RPM. So there are other factors to take into consideration. This is just kind of an in general, rather than versus being too high or too low. I like to be about the center of the green RPM range for the rotor system. Number 9, start with a gentle flare at approximately treetop level. Now again, depending on what aircraft you're flying, it may say start your flare at 40 feet. It may say 50 feet. It may say 100 feet. So again, it depends on the manufacturer's recommendation on what point to start your flare. Personally, I use treetop level. It's hard for me to distinguish between 40 feet, 50 feet. I use the term treetop level. So as I'm coming down, I'm actually watching the tree line, and kind of as I pass the top of the tree line is when I start a gentle flare. So about treetop, I start a gentle flare, and as I get closer to the ground, I make it bigger, I make it bigger, I make it bigger, and when the speed's almost gone, I level it out. Some people teach a more aggressive flare where they get down closer to the ground and pull it a lot harder at the very end and then level it back out. That's technique. So again, depending on your instructor, your flight school, the aircraft, I'm not saying my way is the only way. It's just what I've used over the years that works really well for me. Treetop level. I start the flare real gentle, about treetop or a little below treetop. As I get closer to the ground, I make it bigger and bigger and bigger, because depending on the day, depending on the wind, if you're doing that flare more slowly, you can judge. I need a more aggressive flare today because I don't have a lot of wind, or if I don't have much wind, I might have to get more aggressive. So again, kind of a general rule and my technique. And number 10, when the speed is almost gone, level and raise, roll on throttle. So again, a lot of this is technique, and depending on the aircraft you're flying and the conditions for the day and how heavy you are and the technique you're using. But still in auto rotation, it's when the speed's gone, it's level, raise collective, roll on the amount of throttle you need to join the needles and be back in auto rotation. So working on that flare is going to be, you know, more of a thing where you're going to get probably the best instruction there with your instructor for whatever aircraft you're flying. But it is speed almost gone, level, raise, roll in the appropriate throttle. So that was basically for one of our members that emailed me this morning, and he said, Kenny, I'm really struggling with the autos, and he gave me a long list of the different problems he was having, and I just thought, you know, over the years of the teaching and all the different aircraft that I've flown and got the chance to instruct in,
the basics of the maneuver, the 10 tips I just gave you, are pretty much what I think are the general elements of a good auto. And I just sat down and did the first 10 that come to mind. We could probably do another 30 of those on tips, but those are the top 10 that just came to mind, the things that I see that people struggle with, whether it's messing up the airspeed or messing up the trim or whatever the case is. Those are the most common problems that I see. So let us know what you think down in the comment section below. If you're interested in learning more about Helicopter Online Ground School, go to the link in the description box below. Click that link. Any questions, you can email me at kenny@helicopterground.com. So give us a like, share, some feedback, and we'll see you in the next video.
All right, and we're back. I want to mention a few more people that jumped in since the last time we mentioned, so let me do that first real quick. I think I remember about where I left off. Johan here. Did I mention Johan earlier? Johan is one of our success stories. I've featured Johan in a couple of our videos. Johan's the one that did his rating in 3 weeks after preparing with ground school. Great story about Johan. Awesome to see him here. John Fuller, Mark Schmidt from Sioux Falls. Awesome. Taz in there. Greg Crump from New York City. And awesome. So let's go over to the couple of comments that were made. And I'll switch over to Gary here for a second. Let me get my ducks in a row.
Also, I'm looking at, somebody said, is the process of settling with power the same in an auto rotation, or does it not satisfy the 20 to 100% of power requirement? It absolutely does not meet the power requirement, so you're getting rid of one of the 3 things that can get you into settling with power, so you're safe in an auto rotation.
Yep, I agree. If you're in an auto, you're no longer settling with power.
Right. So as a refresher, you got to have 300 descent on the VSI. You got to be using 20 to 100% of power and moving forward less than ETL 1624.
Right. So auto rotation is a corrective action for settling with power.
Yes.
You can auto rotate to get out of it.
In fact, I believe the Helicopter Flying Handbook says that auto rotation may be the only recovery if settling with power was to be fully developed.
Yep.
Next question, the Schweitzer Handbook actually has a warning about not chopping the power. We had an instructor that was used to fly in Robbie's, rolled the throttle completely off. He got into a real auto. That's correct. That's why we don't chop the throttle, because sometimes the engine can die on you. I actually had my rotorway die when I was running with some FADEC errors, and it went down to FADEC 2, and I decided just to auto it into the runway, flying with a little bit of an attitude, rolled it all the way down to an idle, and the injectors on the FADEC 2 run on dummy values, and it died. So there was a real auto on the runway.
Yep. I want to add to that one a little bit.
Go ahead.
Make sure I get my camera up here. When I started flying in 1997, so in 97, throttle chop was still a pretty common term, and a lot of people were wrapping that thing off, and what Gary mentioned is right, and what we said in the video, and I know people this has happened to. You roll the throttle all the way off, and sometimes the engine will die, and in an Enstrom it'll happen if you have a fuel servo issue. Getting ready to start, the aircraft will run just fine, but if you go all the way off, it'll die, and that's why we always make sure we do that during our pre-takeoff check or pre-liftoff check, is to roll it all the way off, which is part of the checklist, but also the engine will die if you have an upcoming fuel servo problem. But 20 years ago, throttle chop was still pretty common, and today you'll still hear some people say throttle chop. And I think I went to the Robinson factory back probably around 2000, and that's where I first heard them start saying, look, we don't do throttle chops anymore. Too many people getting hurt, too many people getting killed by chopping the throttle, engine really quits, and you went from a practice engine failure to a real failure and wreck the aircraft. I'll go back to Gary for the third statement or question we have there. I'll let you elaborate on that while I check for others.
And I guess along the same line of not doing throttle chops, that's why we practice auto rotations lined up with the runway, so we got a nice spot should the engine quit. The Robinson safety course instructor apparently told somebody or showed how to use the trim during an auto to lose altitude. Now this is a little advanced from what I've practiced, so Kenny, can you relate to that or comment?
Let me ask me again. I was trying to read comments there real fast. What's the question?
Who was it who was talking about the Robinson safety course where an instructor showed how to lose altitude with the trim during an auto?
Yeah, that was Johan. So you could certainly do that, and I always think of it more of a, I like it in trim because it seems to come down slower, but you could move the trim, whatever necessary, to make it come down faster. I'm trying to keep it into trim so I can come down slower and a more coordinated auto, but certainly you could put it out of trim and come down even faster.
I see.
Does that make sense?
I see.
I'll jump over. There's a couple of things in YouTube here. Well, actually, what should we do? What time is it? 10:26. How about if we go ahead and roll the, we're going to talk next about 90-degree autos and 180 autos. And I have a past video on that, but we want to elaborate and talk about that a little bit. It's a kind of tip for people when you're moving into the 180s that helps some people. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and roll the next video, which is full down. No, wait a minute. Did I show the 90-degree video yet? No, I didn't. Let's do that. We'll go ahead and show the 90-degree video, catch up on questions. Gary and I'll get ready to cover what questions have come in since the last video. So let me get that one up. I'm realizing how much now we rely on Courtney to help us do this. So anyway, here we go. Here goes a video with me and Gary out in the R44 when I was kind of showing Gary this technique of using two 90-degree turns versus a 180. This is just something for thought, and we'll come back and elaborate on it in a little bit, so we'll roll that video now.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to film my 90-degree auto rotation. Back when I was a brand new instructor, struggling with autos, had an instructor come in to help me a little bit, and he said, you know what? Let's go out and we'll start out with quick stops today. Always do quick stops before autos, then we'll do some straight ins, then we'll do some 90s, and then we'll turn into the 180s. And I really like that because it seems like it's harder to make the full 180 turn. If you break it down into two 90-degree turns, it gives you time to make the decision. You enter, you turn, roll back out. You might delay a little bit before you turn, or you might be ready just to go ahead and make your second 90-degree turn. Just kind of an alternative instead of trying to judge the full 180. For me, it's easier to do it in two 90-degree turns. So we're going to do a 90-degree turn just for fun. Again, I'm going to try to hit the numbers 2.8. We'll see how close I get. I'm going to, again, enter at 70, 0 rate of descent. I'm going to do this one a little higher. I'm going to do this at 1500 MSL, about 700 AGL, just to give myself a little more of a challenge to try to see how close I can get to the numbers. So we're going to go full carb heat. That's all the way on. About 75, I got a climb going, so I'm going to lower a little collective. Start a left-hand turn to get set up for my 90 degrees. Get back to 1500 where I said I was going to be. Now see how good I can do. Alright, I don't like having a bunch of descent. I don't like being too slow. I don't like things being all whacked out, so I'm going to get it straightened out here. There's 1500. I need to get back to my 70. And you know what? Last minute, I'm screwing around. I'm not set up nice, so what am I going to do? I am going to go around. I'm going to make a right 360-degree turn, and I'm going to go around and get set up again because I was last minute trying to fix everything, and if I would have entered it, I can guarantee you it would have been a sloppy auto rotation. I wouldn't have been happy, and then I'd be saying, I wish I just would have went around. So when you're setting up these auto rotations, don't be too macho to go, you know what, I screwed that up. I don't feel good about it. I don't have the aircraft where I wanted it. I'm going to go around and I'm going to set it up again. Totally, totally, totally the key. Good setup, feel good about it, have everything where you want it, then enter the auto rotation. Now some people say, well, you know, if you ever have a real engine failure, it's just going to quit. you're not going to be at this and that and that. Well, you know what, that's right, but you're going to deal with that in the real world. We're in training mode. We're training people to go take check rides. So for the training environment, yes, we want a nice standard. We want to have everything set up nice because we want a nice auto rotation, because we want to perform well for the examiner so we can get our temporary certificate for whatever rating it is we're going after. So again, the key is a good setup. So I'm going to use 1500, 70, zero rate of descent, in trim. Yes, much better. I like it this time. So if I can keep that, not screw it up. Let's check carb heat again. Yep, got full carb heat. Got 70, 1500. I got a small descent
White
going.
County traffic, Warrior 560, pop uniform is on a left downwind for runway 18, White County traffic.
All right, got time to fix it. Little left pedal. 1500, zero rate of descent, just need a little more speed. So here we go. 70, 1500, in trim. Very small rate of descent. Looking good. I'm going to guess right about now. 1, 2, 3, enter. Okay, looking good. Got 70, RPM's good. I'm going to start my turn. I'm going to be kind of a lazy turn here. Really want to hit those numbers. I want to impress Gary, my camera operator over here. Getting ready to go for his commercial. There's the numbers 2.8, so I'm going to overshoot a little bit. That's all right, I don't care. So here comes the flare. Flare, 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 flare. Level it out. 8 miles. Lots of forward speed. It's all right. I just slide it on and walk away. If it was a real engine failure, we'd need a more aggressive flare and get rid of that speed. All right. What do you think? Anything else you want to do?
All right, we're back.
Good footage. Kenny's making his way up here to talk to you about 180s and 90s, and during the time that video is rolling, we decided that we are going to shoot some more auto rotation footage probably over the winter when we get some downtime. And one thing I wanted to mention, I cleared it with Kenny at the end of the program today, we were going to give a discount code for anybody who is not a member of Helicopter Online Ground School. If you happen to have found us by signing up for the Live Tuesday event and you don't have the rest of the goodies, we're going to give you a discount code to get you in there. So, Kenny, awesome. I'll take the cameras.
You can thank Gary Cleveland for that one. He's like, hey, can we give you a discount today? I'm like, yeah, why not, Chief Pilot? So he's going to give you more details on that later. So we kind of led into this, just to give you a brief description. We just rolled a video of Gary and I out there. And I just wanted to reiterate, this is something that is a tip, okay? Some people, and I've been training 20 years now, all right? Some people do fine making that nice smooth 180 turn, bringing it back out and hitting their spot, and they have no problem. So that's great. If you can make it in a nice 180 turn and you can hit your spot and you have no problems with that, that's great. This 290-degree thing that I'm talking about, literally, when I was a brand new instructor, I got the life scared out of me flying with the guy that I worked for, who was a 180-hour private pilot, weekend warrior. I was a brand new CFI and I wasn't really comfortable teaching autos, because from the time for my CFI check ride to the time that I was actually out there teaching, you know, a few months had lapsed. So I asked the other CFI, also named Ken, I said, let's see if the owner will let us go out and practice some autos, because we didn't really want to pay for it. And the owner says, well, let me go out with Kenny. You know, well, that's not what I really wanted. I wanted to go out with another CFI, but which they also say the most dangerous thing is two CFIs together. But I wanted to go out and practice some autos, but the owner wants to go out, so I just thought, okay, you know, well, he flies a lot, so he'll be good. And I wasn't really ready on the controls for things to go bad. And he's setting up for a 180 auto, and I'm telling him to, you know, make sure you take your time getting set up on this 180. And as I'm telling him to take his time, go out as far as he needs, he isn't listening to a darn word that I'm saying. He cranks it right around, hurries up, gets set up, enters the 180, and everything goes completely just crazy. He even finally I take over. And I saved us, luckily. I saw the RPM go clear down to the minimum where Robin says, so you can't go. I went below that. Somehow we survived it. So I almost quit instructing. I was so freaking scared. I went home going, I'm done. You know, all these 3 or 4 years and all the money I spent, and I don't even want to be an instructor. And I took a couple days to think about it, and I went back and talked to the examiner who I did my private and commercial with, a guy named Jerry Ventrella. Awesome, you know, Vietnam veteran, been flying since ever. You know, he's done over 3,000 check rides at that time, clear back then, and he's still giving check rides today. But anyway, I told him the story, and he kind of laughed at me, and he said, Kenny, we all need that scare. You know, when you get in an aircraft, you never, ever, ever, you never believe the guy beside you is any better than you. You should have had your hands on the controls. You should have been ready to recover. You should have been ready. Don't ever let it happen again. So I hired an older instructor to come in who had like 4,000 hours of R22 time, and he's like, you know, I told him the story on the phone, what happened. So he came in for a couple days. I paid out of my own pocket for his time and for the helicopter time, which I'd already spent everything I had and ruined myself the first time around just getting the ratings, and here I am plugging out more money. So the first thing when he comes in, he says, all right, let's sit down and do some ground, Kenny. So for a day, we started talking about quick stops. Then we talked about straight ins. Then we talked about 90s, and we talked about 180s, and we talked about full downs. We covered everything on the ground. And we went out and we did the quick stops first, and he got me really honed in on what the flare should look like. And they said, okay, now, Kenny, we're not going to go right into 180s and full downs. We're going to do some straight ins with the power recovery. Then we're going to do some, I'm going to show you something. He goes, I'm going to show you these two 90-degree turns and just see if this might help you. And when he showed it to me, I loved it. And I still do a nice swooping 180 turn sometimes, but there are times, depending on day, weight, altitude, whatever the case is, sometimes a 90-degree turn just works out better. And so what he showed me was, he goes, Kenny, let's first start out doing 90s. So we did the straight ins, practiced those first, and then we started doing 90s, where we'd just come from, at that airport, we'd come from the north, enter auto rotation, make a 90-degree turn, go to our spot. So we perfected that, and he goes, okay, let's go do two 90s, and let's see how you like that. So we came around, and again, on a 180, you need to take the time to go out and get set up. People make the mistake of, let's hurry up and get another one in before we go in. If you crank around and you don't have time to get set up and you enter it sloppy, it's going to come out sloppy. So he taught me, make sure you take enough time. Take all the time you need. Our examiner, or the examiner I've been using for 20 years, says, if the key to an auto is a good setup. And he said, on check rides, I don't care if you take 10 minutes to get set up for an auto. Tell your students, take as much time as you need to get set up for these autos. So he showed me that, introduced me to that two 90-degree turns, and I just liked it. So I'm stressing this today because a lot of times I get questions from people working on their CFI or working on their commercial and private too, but mainly CFIs that will say, Kenny, I'm really struggling with the 180s or teaching the 180s. So I'm showing you this as an alternate method instead of trying to get a student to make a full 180 turn. Start out with some 90s, introduce them to straight ins, introduce them to some 90s, and then try two 90-degree turns, because here's what I found is cool. You always want to enter about a beam your spot, but depending on the day, if you get started into that auto fairly quickly and make a nice turn, you get turned in, sometimes you can wait. So on a certain day, you make a 90-degree turn, level out, and you can go, okay, I'm going to wait until about now, and turn it and judge to get in your spot. Excuse me. To me, it's harder to make that swooping 180 turn and hit my spot. If I turn it into two 90s, I can turn to a 90, level out, and go, oh, okay, second 90 right now, roll right into it if I need it. Or if I want to delay a little bit to make it work out right, and then make my second 90-degree turn. So I just wanted to hone that in for those of you that struggle with 180s. This is a method you can try. I like doing 90-degree turns. Somebody will come here, been flying somewhere else for years, and I said, let's do some 90-degree autos. And they'll go, what? Who does 90s? I do. Why not? You know, we do 360s. We do 270s. I've done two 360s, I think, once. So anyway, anything pop up there, Gary, we need to
there's some conversation about managing the RPMs during the auto, and Taz has been jumping in and helping people with that. If you want to comment just about how to manage the RPMs with the collected.
Well, you know, over time we learn, you know, when I started teaching, I was scared to death teaching autos, and I didn't get comfortable teaching them until I probably had 500 hours. And if I go out to teach them today, I'm probably going to want to do a couple on my own and refresh my own technique and memory before I jump in and start right doing them with someone else. And here's what I've learned. Well, I'm going to give the example. We had 2 commercial guys here in the R22 last spring, and they worked with Gary and Chris, both on the ground and the flying. And you know, Chris has been in a CFI for about 5 years. Chris does a great job, but they're down to a day or 2 before their check rides. They're both doing commercial add-ons. And Chris came to me and he's like, these guys can't do the 180s. I'm scared. I don't know if they're going to make it through their check ride. And I'm like, you want me to go out and fly with them? And he's like, yeah, would you? So I went out with these 2, and I had an idea what was going to go on. I thought, okay, I'm going to see where their eyes are going during the 180 turn. I'm figuring that they're probably looking too much inside, because that's typical. Everybody does it. And I also wanted to watch their speed. And I kind of led into it like, okay, let's really work on whichever we were using, because some people use 60, some use 65, some use 70, depends on the aircraft you're flying, the school you're at. But let's say these guys were using 70. I said, I want to make sure today you guys really hone on speed. To me, in 20 years of teaching, it's come more clear to me, and this is just my opinion, if you nail the speed, everything else will follow. And just in a half an hour with both these guys, I cleaned them up. I took care of the problem by getting them to look outside, start focusing on their spot and not inside, but then making them nail their speed. And they both immediately went, oh my God. And I worked with 2 other guys in an R44 at less than a year ago, and they were both having trouble, and they were both doing the same thing, and it was up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And I kept saying, you guys quit going up and down the collective. Why are you doing that? Well, that's the way we were trained. I'm like, look, if you set it up nice, you enter it nice, and if you nail the speed, whatever you're using, so again, let's say 70, if you enter it nice and you give that aft pull and you set that speed, you'll be amazed if you control the speed first, how RPM will follow. So if you do the nice entry, keep that speed, focus hard on that speed, don't be yanking up and down that collective. Know that as soon as you enter, you're probably going to pull back up. And I know depending on what helicopter you're flying, it could be a little bit different. But in general, we enter, go all the way down, and then usually it's going to take just a small upward pull to bring the RPM back where you want it. And if you can do that, your auto is going to clean up. And that's my opinion. Nailing that speed, to me, again, just over the years of doing them over and over and over, I focus now more on speed than I do anything else. If you nail the speed right, if you enter it nice, and you give that aft pull, because so many people do that. That other problem is they enter and don't do that aft pull. So no matter what it is, straight in 180, people have a tendency of entering the auto, not putting the aft cyclic in, so they nosedive a little bit. So then, okay, start speeding up. So then pretty soon you're monkeying with controls. If you send it up nice, if you're going to do your auto at 70, enter, let's say 75 or 72 or 73. Enter just a little bit higher than your glide speed, so that when you enter, you put that nice little aft pull in there to keep it level. Have that speed set, and you'll be amazed if you can nail that speed, how everything else will follow. So hopefully that helps. Anything else?
That covers the comments for now.
Okay.
Do you want me to roll that full down straight in?
Yeah, we're going to roll 2 videos for you. We're going to roll, everybody wants to know about full downs, and those of you that are CFIs, you've done full downs. Those of you that are private or commercial and want to do full down, we want to talk about that and hopefully ease your mind a little bit about what the full down is all about. Some people think they're easier than a power recovery. So we'll roll the first one. This is me and Holly working on our CFI. We'll roll the straight in full downs. Come back, we'll talk about it a little bit, and then we'll roll the 180 full down. So if you want to roll that now.
Okay, so we're going to go around and we're going to set up a straight in auto. You know how to set them up. You know how it should look.
Yeah, and airport elevation here is about the same, huh?
Yep. So yesterday the pull downs were challenging because we didn't have much wind. Today we have wind coming almost right down the runway. I think you're going to notice a big difference in the auto pull downs today versus yesterday. So we're going to make good use of this time because we're here where the check ride's going to be. We got the wind coming down the runway. Yesterday we kind of you know, got comfortable doing them and just got the feel, got the look. We know that the really nice entries was giving us the really nice pull down. You nailed a couple of them right to the numbers.
We're clear, right?
Clear on the left. You've had lots of practice. Deciding when to enter, how to do a nice entry, how to have a good setup. So we'll come around, get a nice setup, count it off 1, 2, 3, enter. Once we enter it, if the entry's good, the glide's nice and we like it, then go ahead and just roll your throttle all the way off. Not chop it, but just smoothly roll it the rest of the way off. Maintain your minimum of 60. At treetop, we're going to start a gentle flare, or a little below treetop, start a gentle flare. As we get closer to the ground, we'll make it bigger, make it bigger, make it bigger. And the wind today, you're going to notice how it's going to happen slower. The flare is going to be slower. We're going to have more time to react, and we're not going to have the run-on that we were having yesterday.
So are we going to go, where do you want to go, that first intersection?
I want to go to the number 9.
Oh, on the runway?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless some airplanes come in, then we can move over to the taxiway. But again, I like to focus. I like it when we have a solid. We know right smack dab there. That's where we want to go. That's better for student and instructor when you're clearly defined spot. You know exactly where you're going.
All right, so let's get everything stabilized here before we make our turn. Going for 1500 and 65 to 70. And I'm going to go out just because I can. Give myself lots of time. It's looking clear. All the right.
Clear on the left. And I'm going to do my best job that I can at keeping my hands off the controls, which is hard for me, just because.
Understandable.
I'll do my best.
And plenty of people trying to kill you over the years.
Yep. And I'm going to try to be, you know, let you be as hands-on as absolutely possible. So.
Okay, I'm going to make a radio call here.
All right.
Goshen traffic, helicopter 26 Papa is on final for runway 9, going for engine failure practice to the number 9, Goshen. All right, we're at 1500. Get that VSI stabilized. Here we have a good entry because key to a good auto is a good entry.
A little bit of left pedal,
Keep
just a
those
little
RPMs
bit.
top of the green.
Very nice. Nice setup.
All right, and because we have so much wind, we want to enter a little bit later than we did yesterday.
Yep.
So I'm going to get that 9 pretty close to the black line there.
Yep.
On my windscreen visual.
Looking good,
I
looking
would say
good.
we're still too far. Do you agree?
Yep.
And I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, enter. Collective down, right pedal.
Nice, good entry.
60.
All right.
There's RPMs.
I'd go ahead and roll the throttle off. What do you think?
Okay.
Go ahead and roll that thing
Throttle's
off.
coming off.
Oh yeah. Nice entry. You decided at a good point.
All right. Flare
Okay, you got it.
First.
Yep.
A little bit more.
Yep. Let her sink before you
Level.
pull it on. Yeah. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Yeah. Woo. Nice.
That's right.
See the difference in the wind?
Yeah,
Oh man,
that's pretty sweet.
we perfect that flare a little bit. Go ahead and pick us up and we'll see how far past where spot we are.
All right, I'm going to roll it up.
Yeah. I'm liking that.
Good. All right, bring it up to 3,000.
I think I pushed you to, I think I was afraid you were going to level out too early.
Uh-huh.
We could wait later. We could get it even closer.
Okay, hold that flare longer.
It still came out good because of the wind. But yeah, I'd hold the flare and get even closer before you level.
Okay. Yeah, it was a pretty decent drop. All right, 3,000. Gonna pick it up in a nice, gentle two-step process. Managing those RPMs as we get light on the skids. Eyes out front. All right. RPM. Nose level. I have to trim it out a little bit here. Actually, I'm going to clear my tail. I just want to see really how far we came.
We're probably, that might be 50 feet.
Nice. That's not bad.
All right, thanks to everybody that's here, and we want to make sure that we interact with you as promised. So 2 things I want to hit until see if Gary brings anything else up, and if we don't feel like we've answered your question appropriately, bring it back up. Because again, normally Courtney's here, and if we slip by and didn't answer something, bring it up. Gary just mentioned that Paul said something about that related to energy. You know, RPM, altitude, airspeed. You always got to think about those 3 forms of stored energy. And I've done that video a couple times, and I know one time I put just a video out, informational video about how important those 3 things are, and somebody made a wisecrack on social media. Oh yeah, like I forgot, huh? That's not what the point. The point is you should be thinking about those 3 things. When you're out there flying and you're doing autos, or no matter what, we need those 3 forms of stored energy. If you have those 3 and you're managing all those correctly, most likely you're going to be able to handle about any emergency. If you let one of those get behind the curve, and then that doesn't matter whether you're taking off, you're landing, you're cross-country flying, if you let one of those 3 get behind the curve, you're going to have trouble dealing with an emergency, and especially in auto rotation. So, you know, we don't always harp on the 3 forms of stored energy may be enough. RPM, altitude, airspeed. You want to be managing all those 3 things, and you should be thinking about those in all of your flying. All the time, RPM, altitude, airspeed. And that's why we use the height velocity diagram for takeoffs, along with all the other things that we learn in performance of the aircraft boils down to managing those 3 things. Taz mentioned, conversely, if you have low RPMs, then lower the collective to get rid of some of the drag and allow the blades to speed up. Absolutely. It's, you know, if you're in a lightweight condition, RPM may be low the whole time you're coming in, depending on what you're flying and what your weight is, and you had a low fuel, or yeah, you were low on fuel. And again, this varies with helicopters, but you know, in general, these techniques work pretty much with about anything you're flying. So if your RPM is a little bit low, don't freak out. It's not going to stall on you if you have the collective all the way down, as long as there's not some other contributing factor, like you got into ice and there was ice on your blades, or some other mechanical problem. If you're in a helicopter and you lose an engine, and if you have airspeed, it's not going to stall on you, even though the horn's going off. And that's one thing that's hard to, especially training in the Robinsons. I feel it's taken me years to get over the low warning horn. You know, when I was out with these 2 in the R22 this past spring, I hadn't flown the R22 in 12 or 13 years, but flown the R44 a lot. So I had Hauser give me a flight review in the R22, and I was amazed at how quick I felt good in it again before I went out to fly with these 2 students. And finally, all these years later, the horn didn't really make my heart race like that, you know. It took me a lot of years to get over that low horn. So it's very common, horn goes off, makes your heart race, but just know if that collective is all the way down, it's not going to stall. And if you're a little bit low, Taz is right, collective all the way down, speed will pick back up. The worst thing to do would be raise collective and drag it down any further. James said he had to overcome fixating outside, keep the scan going. Yes, what I remember from what I was trained years ago and what I use with students is inside, outside. Outside at your spot, back inside. Outside at your spot, back inside. And I usually pick like inside at airspeed, outside of my spot. In at trim, outside to my spot. Inside RPM, outside my spot. So for me, it's a cross check, a constant cross check. Spending too much time inside is a problem. Spending too much time outside could be a problem. So you need to divide that attention, and it needs to be inside, outside. Depending on who you are and where you're flying, you might have something else that works better than that. But that's what I use. That's what I train. As I tell people, it's a constant cross check all the way down. Straight ins, 180s. Full downs, no matter what you're talking about, it's a constant cross check. And I think the more you get comfortable flying the aircraft, you get better with airspeed, you get better with RPM, you start learning the feel of the aircraft. When you're brand new, it's hard, you know, or when you're transitioning to a new aircraft, That's a tough thing to do, and that's why people struggle in the beginning. And the more time you get with any aircraft, you just get that feel of where you can you can judge airspeed a little bit better. You can judge by the sound of the rotor system. You can judge by the speed of the engine. You'll get better to where you don't have to spend so much time inside. Apology, my scan for the auto is airspeed, RPM, outside. Yeah, whatever works, as long as you're doing both. Not fixating too much inside, not fixating too much outside. Like I was mentioning, the most recent was the two I seen that were just spending all their time inside, and they were totally screwing up the turn, and it was making everything just go crazy. And once they learned to look outside, come back, check, back outside, we cleaned everything right up. Okay, I better scroll down here and see what else we may have. Am I getting everything, Gary?
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff.
All right, well, if you got it ready, let's go ahead and roll that last video with Holly. There was so much content. I had trouble picking what did I want to roll today, and I thought, you know what, I want to pick some stuff that today we're teaching you brand new from scratch auto rotations. We want to give tips, tricks, ease your mind on some things. We want to talk about full downs because so many people are just nervous about a full down. So we wanted to show some of those and have that discussion as well. So we'll roll that, and then we'll come back and check and see what else you got.
Whatever you want to do.
Let's do some 180s.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Rolls.
We haven't hurt 2.6 Papa at all. She's all right. She's good. Okay, so we went cuckoo. I did it. You did it. We didn't slam it down. We just didn't land as level as we should have. I'm wondering if the wind hasn't died back down on us now.
Gotta be some reason, right?
Of course. Why I didn't just do it with perfection right on the first try. Had to be some other factor. All right, I'm gonna leave you alone on this too. What do you think?
Okay.
I'm just gonna shut up and let you do it.
All right, pre-takeoff check. Caution lights are warnings. All instruments are in the green. We got fuel. On the go.
I think the good news is now now that we're into it and we're digging it and we're doing them and we're dissecting it, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we got it. Now we're just trying to make it better.
All right.
All right.
Shut up. Shut up. No talking.
Talk to the hand. Oh yeah, my hand's on the collective.
Well, you're right. I mean, I'm not going to be there with you on Friday, so I need to shut up and let you do it.
Okay, I don't want to overfly these aircraft. Oh, I am nowhere close to where I need to be. Alright, I'm going to go around here. Clear left?
Clear on the left.
Nuts.
Thursday traffic, 70158 with uniform, flying over the field.
Not too close?
How about you try this road over here? It's right now this looks better. At first, yeah, it was.
2, 1, enter. Right pedal, collect it down, get in the turn, pitch for 60, not too steep turn. Alright, I'm going to add a little collective.
Thursday traffic, 70158 with uniform, left beam, runway 6, Sturgis.
Pretty high flare, huh?
Yeah, but just keep flaring it till you get almost there. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. But see how we're just about ready to, I mean, we're clear down to 2,000 RPM right before we touch. So, really good. I mean, entry good, turn good, judging your spot really good. Flare was good, you just needed a little closer to the ground.
We are on the
But you hit the numbers. You hit the number 9. So,
that's awesome.
and I gave you a push there. I don't know if you felt it.
I did not.
Because I went like this and then it popped right back. Because it wasn't, I went.
Okay.
I was trying to keep you level longer before you start your flare.
Okay.
I was like, went like that and you went, eh. But that's getting pretty, I mean, look where we're at. I mean, pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was pretty good.
not bad.
I mean,
We're close to perfection. perfection. I mean, we're close to perfection.
Isn't it funny though? My 180s have always been better.
I told you that. Do you remember me telling you a week ago or so that some people a 180 comes out better than a straight in?
I don't remember that, but...
I know, you can't remember everything I said, right? It's true. For some reason, some people think a 180 auto pull down is easier than a straight in. Awesome.
Well, no question on whether or not we got the spot.
We got the spot. That we did. I'd go do another one.
Yep, at least one. Goshen traffic, helicopter 26 Papa's on the go off runway 9. Goshen.
Paul made a comment, love full down autos. So do we. I mean, autos are fun. They're intimidating in the beginning. We know that people get hurt and a lot of accidents happen through training with auto rotation, so there is a lot of drama around it, and there is reason to be careful and have good quality training, but they get to be more fun the more you do them. And we're going to try to wrap this up because we're like 58 minutes and we're trying to keep these at an hour. I used to get guilty. I'd go on an hour and a half or 2 hours. We could talk about autos all day long. We can always do another one in the future if we want to go more in depth on one specific one, but hopefully we gave you some good food for thought today. I think we got everybody answered. If you don't, please email us because we've always got stuff that we can send you or we can make something new, as always. Magnets, pass your check ride. Send us a pic with just a quick a little blurb about your check ride. We'll send you the cool refrigerator magnet. Send us a video. Hogs t-shirt, we still got a bunch of them. People aren't sending us videos. We want some videos. So pass your check ride members. Email us a picture or video. We'll send you your gift. I'm going to let Gary wrap up with a little bit about the Wings program. It's up and running, but I'm going to let him tell you about that since he's been the one behind the 3 months of work into that, and then we'll get out of here.
Okay, just real quick, we'll make it short. A reminder to everybody, we are FAA accredited for Wings. Every course now has an exam at the end that reports directly to the FAA safety, and you will see your Wings credit within 24 hours of taking and passing that test. So we've limited the test to 100 questions. We really had to chop a lot of content out there to get them right there at the 100, but you can pass at 70% and get your Wings phase accredited. As promised, if you need to join Helicopter Online Ground and you're just in here for live Tuesday, I'm going to give you a discount code that will work on unlimited or yearly. GC15 off. GC15 off. Kenny, I'll go back to you for a second and then I'll roll in.
Awesome. We're going to get out of here since we think we got everybody covered. Subscribe to our channel. If you're just watching on YouTube and you're not a member of or subscribed to our channel yet, do us a favor. Subscribe to our channel, like this video, comment down below, use Gary's code GC150FF. Helicopterground.com link is down in the description box below. There's also some other info down there. Free book download, my book Helicopter Check Ride, that should be down there, and I'll check after we're done and make sure that link's down there. Our Instagram and Facebook's in there, so there's free stuff for you. So let's wrap it up and get out of here. Thanks for everybody that was here today. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for your input. Thanks for making Live Training Tuesday become an awesome thing that just keeps growing in popularity, and we appreciate everybody that's here. So subscribe to our channel, like the video, make a comment, share it please. Join Ground School with Gary's special code, and we'll see you next Tuesday.